Likewise, in Syria, which has seen so much misery and death, there is a new government that will hopefully succeed in stabilizing the country and keeping peace. That's what we want to see in Syria. They've had their share of travesty, war, killing, many years. That's why my administration has already taken the first steps toward restoring normal relations between the United States and Syria for the first time in more than a decade. And I'm very pleased to announce that Secretary Marco Rubio will be meeting with the new Syrian foreign minister in Turkey later this week. And very importantly, after discussing the situation in Syria with the Crown Prince, your Crown Prince, and also with President Erdogan of Turkey, who called me the other day and asked for a very similar thing, among others, and friends of mine, people that I have a lot of respect for in the Middle East, I will be ordering the cessation of sanctions against Syria in order to give them a chance at greatness.
The most violent fighting since Bashar al-Assad has broken out in Latakia in northwest Syria. Armed men still loyal to Assad face off with soldiers of Syria's new Islamist government, and civilians are trapped in between. Latakia is an Alawite stronghold, a religious minority to which Assad's family belongs. Syria's new soldiers filmed themselves whilst they humiliated these Alawite men, slapping them and calling them pigs. Dozens of summary executions were recorded in several locations along the coast. Bodies littered the streets as terrified families searched for their loved ones. According to the UK-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, more than 1,000 people have been killed in 2 days of violent clashes.
It's really an act of vengeance against a community that's considered to have been the pillar of Assad's power. It's also a religious hatred. For Islamists or Jihadists, the Alawites are heretics that must be eradicated.
The question remains, were these atrocities ordered by Syria's new authorities, or were they carried out by the country's most radical factions? Ahmed al-Shara, who has been promising a peaceful transition, denounced the crimes.
Anyone who commits violence against civilians will be held accountable. It is our duty to protect our compatriots.
A few days ago, fear reigned among the Alawites of this neighbourhood, blocked off because of a rise in abductions and assassinations since December. In Homs, this shopkeeper barricaded himself at home and was considering leaving Syria.
Being an Alawite does not necessarily mean that I supported Assad's regime. Today, we think there is no place for minorities in this country. Our new leaders are extremists. We cannot live with this threat of revenge.
The growing threat of Islamist groups joining Syria and Afghanistan grown to new heights. And it's something that I've done a couple of previous videos on, and to warn the public about a looming threat that's growing right now in parts of Central Asia and, of course, the Middle East, specifically 2 countries in mind, Syria and Afghanistan. And there's an article that came out in, it was May of this year, by senior fellow of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies and a counterterrorism expert named Bill Roggio. And I want to share this article with you and to show you the threat that is really becoming a paramount movement of Islamist groups joining together for a common enemy to overthrow Southeast Asian and Middle East democracies. The near enemy and far enemy approach. It's still alive. And when I talk about Syria, sometimes I'll get certain people to come on my channel. Very few as they are, because I don't attract much attention, but that will argue the fact that no, Ahmed al-Shara, Abu Muhammad al-Jalani, is a reformed individual, and that Syria is heading for a new future, which is a democratic future, an Islamic democratic future. But that's not the case. I'm only going to show you primary source material. I'm not going to just offer my baseless opinions. Now, as you can see here, Syrian military integrates al-Qaeda-linked terror group into its ranks. Now, who could this group be? The new Syrian government is integrating, and you know what I'll do is I will, of course, blow up the article. I want you to really see this, because seeing is believing, folks, right? The new Syrian government is integrating a Central Asian terrorist group that is part of al-Qaeda's network into its military, despite the objections of President Donald Trump. And you just saw Trump remove the sanctions off Syria, and this was after the fact. The head of the terror group, the Turkistan Islamic Party, also known as the Eastern Turkistan Islamic Movement, is based in Afghanistan. Ladies and gentlemen, what did I say in previous videos? That Syria and Afghanistan will conjoin together to create the Islamic Caliphate, that bin Laden, Abu Muhammad al-Zarqawi, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi couldn't do, or even Muhammad al-Maqdisi, who's even more powerful than all of those guys. None of these people could do what this guy's doing, but this guy's getting U.S. support. U.S. didn't support bin Laden in Afghanistan in 96. U.S. didn't support Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi besides buying oil at a discount price from the Islamic State, who captured the oil fields in Damascus. They certainly didn't help Abu Musab al-Zarqawi, nor Muhammad al-Maqdisi. But Abu Muhammad al-Jalani, who was backed by the Gulf, Turkey, U.S., and Israel, and U.S. coalition partners, some of them anyway. Now, Israel is split when it comes to Jalani. I'll give them that, because they see the threat that they could become. And Jalani has had his criticism with Israel regarding the Golan Heights. Now, let's read on. On May 14th, U.S. President Donald Trump met with Syrian interim President Ahmed al-Shara. I just know him as Abu Muhammad al-Jalani, who is listed as a terrorist by both Washington and the United Nations, and once served as the head of Syria's al-Qaeda affiliate, al-Qaeda in Syria, also known as Jabhat al-Nusra. In the meeting, Trump gave the Syrian leader a number of demands, chief amongst them the removal of all foreign terrorists from Syria. Even after the fact, when this article came out, the video that played before me speaking was well after this article came out. And Trump removed the sanctions. That means the Eastern Turkmenistan movement, the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan group, the TTP, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, Al-Qaeda in Yemen, Hay'at Tahrir al-Sham, which is the government of Syria, all facilitating movement between Syria, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. After the fall of the Assad regime in December 2024, the United States made the expulsion of foreign fighters a key prerequisite for lifting U.S. sanctions. Now, Abu Muhammad al-Jalani made sure that the integration of foreign fighters was slow. Now, at the same time, there are still sanctions on the Taliban. Yet, we still send money to the Afghan government, but the Afghan government is the Taliban. It's not going to the people. The United States is saying we're sending money to the people, but they know full well that that's not true. It's never going to the people. I mean, they don't allow their women to vote. They don't allow women to have jobs. They don't allow women to do anything under the Hanafi traditions, the Taliban's outdated traditions. These are not Islamic believers by any means. Don't get this mixed up. These are Islamists who use the Quran as a shield, just like evangelical Christians who wear the shield and say Islam is not compatible with the West here in the United States. Racists, nationalists, all this type. These aren't religious people. These aren't pious people. These are people brainwashed by ideology. And right now, it's much more polarized here in the States than anywhere else in the world. Shara continued to delay actions, insisting that foreign fighters that helped in getting rid of Assad deserved respect. Meanwhile, these are the same groups. You know, the United States is hypocritical. In 2011, a CIA-led operation called Timber Sycamore was sending military aid to these same groups to help overthrow Assad. Now that Assad is gone, 13 years later, the U.S. is saying to Jelani, hey, get rid of these groups. Jelani's saying these groups deserve respect. They helped destroy the Assad government. And now you progressives, you leftists that called for the ouster of Assad said, oh, we're making progress. Well, now you have an ultra-Orthodox terrorist organization involving other ultra-Orthodox terrorist organizations to exist in a country that is slaughtering progressives. You can't make this up. May 18, Syrian Defense Ministry integrated the Turkistan Islamic Party, the TTP, a Uyghur jihadist group based in Afghanistan, allied with al-Qaeda, that has a presence in both Afghanistan and Syria, into the ranks of Shara's newly formed army. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. What did I say in other videos? I said the threat will be Syria, Afghanistan in the future. And it will be much more a greater danger to the West than bin Laden or al-Zarqawi or al-Baghdadi ever were, even Abu Nidal. Way worse than these people. These are countries, whole militaries with American military-made weaponry and money. Supported by who? The U.S. Whatever the U.S. touches when it comes to the government is destroyed, or they turn rotten. Our allies, Saudi Arabia, Israel, Syria, are they not the worst governments on the face of the fucking earth? Ultra-nationalists, ultra-Salafists? The decision to bring the TTP into the Syrian military came shortly after Syrian Defense Minister Murhaf Abu Qasara declared that all major armed factions were absorbed by the Ministry of Defense. And by the way, Murhaf Abu Qasara, who's the current Syrian Defense Minister, was also was also a member of Hay'at Tahrir al-Sham. He was the commander-in-chief. TTP fighters. Now, let's keep in mind here too, ladies and gentlemen, the Turkmenistan Islamic movement are declared a terrorist organization. Eastern Turkmenistan Islamic movement, headed by the United Nations Security Council. The Eastern Turkmenistan Islamic movement, in accordance with paragraph 13, resolution 1822, and subsequent resolutions. The Islamic State and Al-Qaeda Sanctions Committee makes accessible a narrow summary of reasons for listing for individuals, groups, undertakings, including Daesh, on the Al-Qaeda sanctions list. Number 1, Eastern Turkmenistan Islamic Movement. It was listed on September 11, 2002, pursuant to paragraphs 1 and 2 of Resolution 1390. Hasn't come off yet. So now a designated terrorist group at the United Nations Security Council is now forming the military of the Syrian government backed by the United States. Talk about hypocrisy, ladies and gentlemen. In December 2024, Abu Muhammad al-Jilani promoted 6 foreign fighters to the ranks of the brigadier general, including TTP's top commander in Syria, Abdulaziz Daoud Huda Baderdi, also known by his nom de guerre Zahid. Zahid had played a central role in the group's military operations in Syria since 2012, at the beginning of the nexus of Timber Sycamore. He's probably backed by the United States, by the Gulf, by Israel, by Qatar, by Turkey. Recognized for his discipline and leadership, he was sent to Syria's TIP's military commander during the early stages of the civil war. The TIP is fought under the banner of al-Nusra Front and its successor, Hay'at Tahrir al-Sham, both of which are listed by the U.S. government as foreign terrorist organizations. Jilani, who is specifically designated global terrorist, led both the al-Nusra Front and Hay'at Tahrir al-Sham. Zahid led key offensives in Aleppo, Idlib, and Latakia, commanding over 1,000 operatives against Russian, Iranian, and Syrian. Remember who we were at war with shortly after Syria? Russia and Iran, right? Because Russia and Iran were doing what? They were eliminating U.S. allies. And who are U.S. allies? Islamic fundamentalists. Not allies in the general sense. Of course, the media is not going to say that, but that's who we fund and train. Covertly, of course. The CIA doesn't want you to know that, but Timber Sycamore was a fucking gigantic operation. Thank you, New York Times, for breaking. And with the integration of the TIP, which has thousands of fighters into the country, into the Syrian military, thousands, it is likely that other foreign jihadi groups such as the Katiban Imam al-Bukhari and the Mujahideen Guruba Division, the Islamic Jihad Union, and Anjuman al-Kabaz will be subsumed as well. Many of the groups have direct ties to al-Qaeda. Of course they do. Of course they do. And the Syrian government is made up of terrorists because Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is designated terrorist group. Syrian authorities appoint HTS figures as foreign defense ministers. An entire country, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time in history, entire country of Islamists. From head, the president, Abu Muhammad al-Jilani, to Defense Minister Murhaf Abu Qasara, all the way down to its rank and file soldiers. Syria's new rulers have appointed a foreign and defense minister. The official Syrian news agency, Sana, as they seek to build international relations 2 weeks after Assad was ousted. The ruling general command on Saturday, named Abu Hassan al-Shalbani as foreign minister. A source in the new administration told Reuters news agency that this step comes in response to the aspirations of the Syrian people to establish international relations that bring peace and stability. In fact, al-Shalbani and Qasara both led factions to slaughter Alawites that you saw in the beginning of the video. That's why I played it. The United States is ignoring the fact that Muslims are being killed by other jihadists that are supported by the United States government and the intelligence services and foreign governments. It seems whenever the West is involved, Muslims get killed. In the thousands. There's a war going on. It's spiritual, it's physical, it's psychological. It's destroying us as a human race. Murhaf Abu Qasara was named defense minister to the interim government, an official source told Reuters. Abu Qasara is also known by the nom de guerre Abu Hassan 600, a senior figure in Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. Rasul Serdat, who was Al Jazeera reporting from Damascus, said Abu Qasara and al-Shalbani were very much close to Abu Muhammad al-Jilani. This is raising questions whether HTS is forming its own government or Syrian's government. This is 2 weeks after after Assad is ousted. Now it's official. Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is the government of Syria. a foreign designated terrorist organization. Ladies and gentlemen, the threat is not Russia. The threat is not North Korea. The threat isn't China. The threat isn't Iran. The threat isn't Lebanon. It isn't the Palestinians in Gaza. It is Syria and Afghanistan. And now it's Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. It's Al-Qaeda in Yemen. It's Hayat Tahrir al-Sham in Syria. It's the HHT. It's the HTP. I'm sorry. The TIP in Afghanistan, and now Syria, and the Tehrik-i-Taliban in Pakistan, which are working in coordination with the Taliban in Pakistan and the Taliban in Afghanistan. In all these groups, and most notably Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, all are working closer to each other. And if they do, ladies and gentlemen, if they do this, if the United States does not act now, this will be an army of Islamists that will visit the West itself and create a terrorist act that will make 9/11 seem like a distant fucking memory for what we have done in Gaza, in Yemen, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and of course, the West Bank and Lebanon. Because they'll use these propaganda videos that they pump out with the full help of ISIS Khorasan. Let's not forget about Daesh, Islamic State in Levant, added into those groups. We have to be proactive now before it's too late. And nobody's talking about this. Very, very few, if anything. The media won't talk about it because they back the government in Syria, as you can see. The U.S. government is going to tell you because they back the government in Syria, as you can see. And the threat is coming from these people because it seems that whenever we're allies with somebody, they later turn out to be enemies. Remember we once supported jihadist groups in Afghanistan to overthrow the Soviet Union. We did the same in 2011 by supporting jihadists to overthrow the Syrian government and as well as to get rid of the Russian military. And now that there's no more Assad government, there's no more Russian military in Syria, the presence of mind will be us, the West. Because the Islamist mindset is that there is an ultimate war, and that is the war against the Crusaders and the Yahud, which are the Jews, against the Islamic Republic. And yet, ladies and gentlemen, there's nothing pious about any of these groups, nothing righteous, because they don't represent us, the common people. Thank you very much for tuning in. Please spread this video around. I don't really ask people to do it, but I really do want to make people aware of what's going on currently before it's too late.